look on my one side, you make me give number.
Leatita Ky's conceptual hair sculptures of Adinkra symbols situate African aesthetics and representations of African spirituality as currencies of beauty. These sculptures of Akan Adinkra symbols from current-day Ghana, created by Ky, who's from the Ivory Coast, represent Adinkra as an aesthetic, diasporic, spiritual language. These are representations of a language of love, spirit, and strength. Originally used as a visual script to describe proverbs, the symbols call to divine connection through the living out of spiritual values. They also once marked gold weights and denoted royalty. These representations of Adinkra symbols extend the currency of spirituality of Ky's sculptures into a contemporary consciousness. Hair as a sculptural medium ties Akan values and the nobility Adinkra represents to African women's hair. The store-bought hair that shapes the sculptures emphasizes that it is the creativity of African women's stylings that speak to an ancestral source of strength and love. Thus, these sculptures emphasize the elegance and wealth and representations of African power. The use of contemporary materials asserts the longevity of Adinkra symbols as markers of wealth. In Ky's sculptures, hair becomes gold, embossed with Adinkra. Supplemented by explanatory slides, the Adinkra context of Ky's sculptures is clearly defined to reach a broad audience. The full exhibition intertwines the visuals of Adinkra with their meanings, emphasizing that these are always working together. In Sankofa, a bird looks backward as it walks forward, emphasizing that all forward movement has its origins in the past. Duafe references a comb, further insisting that hairstyling is a representation of the divine African feminine. These sculptures, situated on Ky's own head, assert that hair is a representational means to call divinity into the living. Ky's body is a means for display, asserting that the power of these representations lays upon and builds out of the African feminine. In this series, love of the divine and love of ancestral and metaphysical knowledge become the divine feminine. The series reshapes sculpture through the utilization of hair as a medium and TikTok as a platform for exhibition. Ky's work, often exhibited on social media through photography, is typically playful and comedic in posing and content. These sculptures, through the photography that holds them, are noble and serious. Each composition is still and noble within itself, weaving a representation of power and assuredness, while the sculptures change, permanent only through photography and display. Through TikTok as a mode of exhibition, the attention and viewership these sculptures garner become the composition and a route for the Akan values represented to move through the digital landscape. These sculptures garner value through their ability to reach viewers. The sculptural gaze, mediated through the framing of Ky as part of the sculpture, captures the viewer, literally reaching outwards and wrapping the viewer in a love of African power. Ky's sculptures are manifestations of this, using Adinkra to mark African women's hair as sacred. Ky's sculpture's ephemeral nature suggests that a physical manifestation of Adinkra is part of a larger metaphysical system of beauty. Ky's sculptures channel beauty in a technological world through a language of African divinity, reanimating Adinkra within a contemporary digital context. These sculptures, through their ebbs and flows, ensure that Adinkra becomes the means of marking sacredness for a new age of viewers. Representations of Adinkra symbols as high art sculptures assert that beauty is to be understood through an accessing of ancestral languages of power. Ky's conceptual sculptures extend the representational possibilities of sculpture into the realm of imagination informed by African antiquity. Sculptures of Gai Nam, Sankofa, and Wawa Abe weave a pictorial tale of a present informed by the past that Adinkra describes. The use of Sankofa suggests that the past is never left in the past. Thus, Ky's representations of Adinkra build upon Adinkra's own representational power. The Gai Nam sculpture represents a duality of God's love. This hair sculpture is a creative act of loving God. It is also a demonstration of a deep spiritual care for the God contained within the sculpture, mediated through the hair medium. Paired with Duafe, these sculptures assert a love for the African feminine defined as strength and spiritual power. Ky's Wawa Abe sculpture speaks to the continued power of Adinkra, of Akan's spiritual lessons, and the power in Ky's representation. The last sculpture in the series is of Ipa, situating justice as the end-all be-all of this conceptual representation of divinity. Ipa remains, leading outward into a system of valuation that honors African-informed visions of sacred righteousness. Through their posing and symbolism, these representations show that Adinkra is a language that calls the spirituality of African antiquity into representational methodologies. Ky's sculptures are a vehicle to assert Adinkra as a contemporary language through which hair becomes a physical manifestation of currencies of love and power.
You make me give number. Me no feel look and pass.